All right, welcome back. Let's quickly chat with Mustafa Chike-Obi, who is the former MD, that's Managing Director at AMCON, Asset Management Corporation of Nigeria. Welcome to the program, sir, and good morning to you in Lagos.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm well, but could be
Can you hear
better.
me?
Yes, I can hear you. I can hear you. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Okay, just let me give you a minute to get your views on the Nigerian economy. How would you describe Nigeria at 59? Nigeria will be 59 tomorrow. A 59-year-old, is he a man now, a woman? But how would you describe? I don't know what to say. Is Nigeria a man or a woman? You know, sometimes high unity, him. You know, but describe to me Nigeria at 59.
Well, countries are usually referred to as female, so
Yes.
let's say it's a her. The Nigerian economy at 59, I guess we all agree, has not reached its full potential. What is reassuring in the last month or so, the president of Nigeria seems to have decided to focus on the economy with the appointment of the brilliant team of advisors on the economy. I think that if you listen to the government now, you can see a much more increased focus on the economy. I just left a workshop with the governor of the central bank, and he had a very ambitious and I would say well thought out plan for the creative industries. So I think that the effort of the Nigerian government now is focusing more on the economy, and I welcome that. The only advice I would give the leaders of the country is that there must be a vision for the country's economy that is communicated to the advisory team. So the advisory team basically knows what it is advising the president to do. My thought is that we should focus on double-digit growth, increase productivity of the Nigerian worker from the currently $4 an hour to maybe $15 an hour, and look for employment of 3 to 5 million Nigerians a year. They haven't given that vision to the advisory council. They are brilliant enough to tell the president how to accomplish his vision. I think not having a vision before you appoint such a brilliant team of economists is probably putting the cart before the horse. And I think the vision should have been first before the advisory council. But apart from that, the team is excellent, and I think that the president's focus on the economy is to be commended. We have a long way to go, but at least every long journey starts with a step, and I think that the steps are beginning.
Okay, since you are very optimistic, and just like you said, with the appointment of the EAC, that's the Economic Advisory Council, I don't think they've even started yet. They're yet to be inaugurated. But a lot of people have welcomed that decision based on the fact of the pedigree of the members of that committee, of the council. Now, let's take a look at Nigeria at 59. You know, I've always wondered what the Nigerian economic philosophy is. And I've really not gotten an answer to that question whenever I ask myself or ponder Nigeria at 59, what's our economic philosophy? Perhaps you need to answer that. If you have an answer, what do you think Nigeria's economic philosophy is, even as we approach 59, October 1?
Well, it always ends up the same place. We need to have a living standard for Nigerians that is comparable to the other nations, developed nations in the world. We need to, for example, we need to grow our GDP to the point where our per capita income is $10,000 or above. We need to lift, like everybody wants to do, 50 to 100 million people out of poverty as soon as possible. We need to be a country that makes what it eats, what it drinks, what it drives, a country that educates its people internally, mostly. We need to improve standards. And we all know what it is. But like I say, I'll break it down to 3 simple things. We must have double-digit growth for the next 10 years. That is imperative. If you tell this brilliant EAC, I can brilliant because I know many of them. If you tell them you want double-digit growth, they will tell you how to do it. If you tell them you want to employ 3 to 5 million Nigerians a year, they will tell you how to do it. If you tell them you want to increase productivity in Nigeria from, again, the $4 an hour to $15 an hour, which is, I think is a minimum, they will tell you how to do it. So if you tell them you want to raise revenues in order to fund your infrastructure deficit, they will tell you how to do it. What is lacking, in my opinion, is that we don't have the vision, which I've just tried to encapsulate. And so you're creating people and you're saying, advise me, but again, advise me on what? But I think the vision is very clear. We want our young people to stay here. We want our young people to stop going abroad. We want a modern society with living standards comparable to the Western world. I think that's the general vision, and I think we have a long way to go before we get there.
Now, you're talking about vision, and does an average Nigerian knows what the economic vision of the country is? I do know years ago we had Vision 2020. We had different visions. You know, we even had different visions for sectors. The FSS 2020 is also the financial system strategy. Yeah, I think so, 2020. What is this economic vision, if there is? And if there isn't, can there be an economic vision that can be crafted and articulated and communicated to an average Nigerian to understand that this is the economic vision of the country? This is where we want to be in the next 10, 20, 50, 100 years. Can you just put some perspectives to that?
Yes, I think that's exactly what we need. But it cannot be Vision 2020. It's too complicated. Nobody on the street will understand that. So if I tell, for example, the minimum wage that we're having difficulty paying of 30,000 naira a month doesn't seem to me to be enough to create a decent lifestyle for Nigerians. So we need to say things to Nigerians that they will understand. You're 100% correct. We need to say to them, be able to live in a certain way. You will be able to, your incomes will be in a way comparable to the incomes in the rest of the world. And all I'm telling you is, how do we get there? But the vision is quite simple. We will lift you out of poverty. We will give you schools that you can be proud of. We will give you roads you can be proud of. You will have electricity. It's the living standard of the Nigerians that they will understand. Now, how you do it is what contained in those big documents like Vision 2020. And the average Nigerian is not going to read it. But we can communicate to the average Nigerian that your lives will be better. You will be able to eat 3 meals a day. You'll be able to have drinking water. You'll be able to have electricity. You'll be able to send your children to good schools in Nigeria. Those are things Nigerians know and understand. But when you start talking about documents like Vision 2020, FSS 2020, those are for the people who are entrusted with responsibility to deliver those things. Those are for them to read. What I just want is for the president to tell us simply, all Nigerians, here's how your life will be better in the next 5 to 10 years, and then let the eggheads figure out how to do it.
Now, we seem perhaps to understand that we need to be here, or we need to be at a certain place at a particular period of time. You've just articulated what an average Nigerian wants. I want electricity when I put on when I click the button. I want good water supply. I want to have good schools to send my children to, not even private schools I'm paying, off the roof and all of that. The question is, we know all those things and they are beautiful. They are beautiful when we say it. What is the problem with achieving the how? Because it seems that what we have a problem with is the how of the strategy. What is the problem with the how?
Yes, now well, let me tell you what I think. I think that sacrifices have to be made. Everything that matters in this world requires some sacrifice. You just had a beautiful baby, and I know that you had some sacrifices in order to have that beautiful outcome. So what we don't see is the willingness of our leaders to make sacrifices. But they ask the poor people to make sacrifices. So what I suggest is you lay out the plan and you say to people, this is what it involves. It's going to make it difficult for the average Nigerian person to go on vacation to London once a year because the naira will be a little bit weaker for two or 3 years until we grow our economy. There are sacrifices that all of us have to make, but we just don't see our leaders making the sacrifices. I tell the story. I live in the U.S. half of the time, and I went to a diner, a small diner, and I saw basically the mayor of my town having breakfast by himself. No entourage, no policemen following him around, no 100-car convoy. We need to start realizing that as a country, if our leaders show sacrifice, the people below will also sacrifice with them. All of the prescriptions for growing our economy require sacrifice from the top to the bottom. And I think that I can sit down with you and tell you precise things. Grow the GDP double digits. What does that involve? It involves lower interest rates, probably. It involves a weaker currency, probably. It involves inflation for a while, probably. It involves removing the subsidy for a while. But for people to accept those sacrifices, they have to see the governor of a state not go around with 50 cars. They have to see governors in commercial flights. They have to see ministers making sacrifices that we're asking the people to make. And I think that until that culture permeates our leadership, we're going to have a problem doing the hard things we need to do.
Now, speak to me as Nigeria will be 59, October 1. I don't want to ask you how old you are, but perhaps you can give me some kind of history into what Nigeria was, and perhaps if Nigeria is any better, because I wasn't born in 1960, as it were. I came far after 1960. But, you know, talk to me about your historical experience, 1960 till date.
Well, Nancy, I'm older than Nigeria. That much I can tell you. I was born 5 years before independence, so you can do the math. I remember my father, as you may know, was a very controversial politician, a nationalist, and a man that I think Nigeria should appreciate more than they have so far. So we grew up, he tried to make us grow up as what he would consider the common man. So we grew up in the 50s and in the 60s. We used to, for example, eat our meals from a communal plate. All the children got together and had meals together. I went to what you call public schools. Even though my father was a lecturer in the University of Ibadan and we could have gone to the staff school, he made us go to a public school, and we used to walk a mile or two to the school because he wanted us to grow up as common people. But in those days, even though the standard of living wasn't as good as it is today, we all shared in it. It was very difficult in those days to find, for example, foreign fruits. You go to National Assembly and they give you apples and grapes and pears. That shouldn't happen. We have fruits in Nigeria that are better than those fruits. We have mangoes, we used to have guavas, we used to have all sorts of things that were native to Nigeria. The taste for foreign goods was not as prevalent as it is today. I remember the first time I entered a car with air conditioning in it. Those cars were rare. So, yes, things have moved on and we shouldn't be poor forever. But we had a sense of unity. We had a sense of being part of a great project, Nigeria. And there was not this big division amongst Nigerians in those days. My father was born in Zaria. Nigeria was more of a unit, a project then. What I find sad now is that we've all gone to our corners in Nigeria. The rich isolate themselves as much as they can from the rest of the people. We're divided among tribes. We're divided among religion. And I think that Nigeria as a project is not as together as it used to be when I was growing up. That's what I miss. The notion that we're all Nigerians is fracturing at a very rapid rate, and I think the leadership should address that.
I think since tomorrow, or October 1, is the 59th Independence Day, for since the Independence Day is going to be on the 1st of October, and Nigeria will be 59. You've just said it's what you miss when you were born. Of course, you just told me that you were born before the independence in 1960. Do you think that these cracks that we're seeing against around ethnic lines, tribal lines, and all of that, do you think that those cracks would also affect us growing economically? Because when you're also talking about economic growth or economic development or economic transformation, you also need to put into cognizance the social-cultural nature of a people. Oh, okay. Okay, let's quickly take a break and see how we can reconnect with Mustafa Chike-Obi, the former MD at AMCON. Okay, I'm being told he's back on. Sir, let me ask you the question again. I hope you can hear me now. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. I was asking earlier on, if, just like you said, you've given me some part of your experience when you were growing up, the unity that you experienced. Now we're seeing that unity being cracked a bit in terms of a lot of people do things along tribal lines, along ethnic lines, and all of that. Do you think that those cracks would also affect us economically as we seek for economic transformation or economic development, bearing in mind that the social-cultural nature of a people is also fundamental in building the economy of any nation?
Yes, you're 100% correct. But the thing you need to understand is it's important for an Igbo man to be able to go to Kano and set up his shop. It's important for us to site our industries where they are most useful. It's important for our food processing plants to be placed in places where the food baskets of the country. It's important. I have disagreed with many people on this Ruga issue. I see nothing wrong with Ruga. If people want to buy land in Anambra State to ranch cattle and pay the commercial price for land in Anambra State, if they're Nigerians, that God bless them. They will realize that it's cheaper to do it in Niger State, that has a lot of land, than to do it in Anambra State, that has no land, and the prices will show. So as long as government is prepared to pay commercial prices for land, or whoever wants to buy land for whatever purpose is paying commercial price, I don't see the problem with Ruga. I don't see the problem with an Igbo man setting up shop in Kano. I don't see the problem with a Yoruba man setting up shop in Enugu. I think that we have become so fractured that we see everything along the lines of how does it affect me and my tribe. And I think that until we can work together and we can all see, look, I think the most important road in Nigeria is the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, because it is the gateway to the north. Every mile of that road helps the north. But it has become such a big issue. The second Niger Bridge is a very important thing for us economically. Let's look at things that are important and not worry about where they're sited and whose state it's in. And let us work together as a project, as a country, and do what's best for us socially, culturally, and economically. And I think that if we're not thinking as a team, we will not do as well as we can do economically.
Now, what will get us to think as a team, our team Project Nigeria, even as we approach 59, even as you said that we're fractured, what does it take to put those bones together that are fractured to, to heal and become, start to work again? What do we need to bring to the table to say, hey guys, we are all one Nigeria, and this is Team Nigeria project for us to advance economically? That's the A part of my question. The B part of my question, because some people may also be wondering, as you're speaking to me, you've spoken about your father who is... I just wanted to ask the B part of the question. You spoke about your father who is a renowned person in the country, and your name is Mustafa, one will begin to wonder, where did you get that Mustafa from? Mustafa Chike-Obi?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
The first part of your question, what it requires to heal this nation is leadership. We need leadership from the top, and unfortunately, I don't want to pick on current leadership. We haven't had that kind of leadership for a long time, and this may just be a continuation of the lack of. We need visionary leadership, and that's the most important thing Nigeria needs today. More than anything else, they need visionary leadership. The second thing about my name, I was named for two reasons. I have an older brother called Balogun. My father believed that Nigerians should be able to name their children from any part of the country. So my older brother is Balogun Chike-Obi, and I'm Mustafa Chike-Obi. He felt strongly that it made more sense to name a Nigerian Balogun or Mustafa than to name one Nancy, an imported name, if I may use it as an example. So he will have had problem with you being called Nancy, and he will have said, why can't you have a good Nigerian Igbo Yoruba name? It could have been Nancy, for all he will care. The second reason was that my father admired Mustafa Kemal Atatürk of Turkey for his nationalistic ideals. So he named me for those two reasons. A, any Nigerian should have any Nigerian name, and B, he admired Mustafa Kemal of Turkey.
Okay, Mr. Mustafa Chike-Obi, I also have a local name, and my local name is Somam. That is my local name that I was given by my grandfather. So you should understand, should I interpret for you? Somam, Nwa means child, Somam, that is, let me put it the way local people will understand. Child, don't they sweet me? Let me say it that way. So, so that is my local name, Nancy Nnaji. That is my local name. So triple N, as it were, NNN. But let's take that aside.
All right.
Yes, let's take that aside now and see, what do you think that the government should do, at least in the next 4 years, or perhaps I'll say 3.5 years, that this administration has? Because if you take a look at it right now, the gap between the haves and the have-nots so wide, income distribution so wide. You know, we're talking about, we have the richest man in Africa, Aliko Dangote, a lot of rich people here, a lot of rich people in Africa are domiciled here in Nigeria, but yet the gap between the haves and the have-nots so wide. What should we do to bring the gap? That is to lessen it.
Well, there are a number of things I would advise. One, it would be nice if we start seeing some sacrifice from the top. When I was at AMCON, I was the MD. I never traveled with anybody. I carried my bags and I traveled alone because I knew one day I would stop being MD of AMCON and I'll have to carry my bags anyway. So, but because I carried my bags, my subordinates couldn't have entourages with them. So they had to follow my example. I think leadership means leading by example. I think when the president is traveling in Abuja, they close many roads. They station policemen probably every half a mile all the way to the airport. And he travels in a convoy of 100 cars, maybe 60, 70, 80. If he cuts his convoy down to 10, every governor will have to cut their convoy down to 5 or something. And so we start. People see these things. People see our leaders living like lords. And so when you ask them to make a sacrifice, they won't. You try and get your passport. If you don't, people will ask you for all sorts of things. You go to the villa. By the time you go from the pilot gate to the last gate, you have probably spent some money because they see how their leaders live. So the first thing I recommend is let leaders cut down a bit on the lavish lifestyle. We will see it and we will appreciate it. And then we can make our own sacrifices because it trickles down. So leadership, the first thing I would like to see after October 1 is a reduced convoy by the president. It will trickle down to the state governors and head of parastatals. So that's one. Cost of governance is too high. It's way too high. There's no governor that needs more than 10 aides. I don't know what work they think they're doing that they need more than 10 aides. But let governors reduce their staff, their personal staff. Even if you pay the 10 more, you get more out of it than getting 100 aides that you're paying less. And then they have to find ways to make money. So lifestyle of our leaders has to be reduced in a visible manner that everybody can see it. That's the first thing I'll advise. The second thing I'll advise is that tell people what you expect from them and why it will benefit them in the long run. Because the biggest problem is that no Nigerian believes in any long-term project because things change too rapidly. So let's start planning and letting people know where we're taking them and what it takes to get there and the benefits when we get there. The last thing I will advise the present government, I don't know what will happen in the Supreme Court. I'm not one of those that thinks that it is already decided. I think that the justices will listen and they'll make the decisions that they think is best or what is correct. But after that decision is made and we're done with this election, because that's the last step with this election, I will advise the leadership to unite the country. There are some good people on both sides. There are good people who are on the PDP side and good people who are on the APC side. Let's unite. Anybody who's good that can help the country, invite them to help the country in the sake of nationalism. And let's see whether we can, in the next 3 years, start the process of rebuilding our country, because we will soon be 60, and 60 is a milestone year. So let's start the process. Let's invite everybody who can be part of it after we finish with the election. I think it's time to unite the country.
Now, just 1 minute for you to answer this question because we're pressed for time. We need to close the program. Right now, you said so much about unity, unity. Taking a look at what we need to do, how would we begin to achieve this?
Well, whatever happens after the Supreme Court decision, because that's still out there and we must not ignore it. I would love to see Atiku Abubakar and Muhammadu Buhari publicly embrace each other. I would like to see a sense that, okay, we can all work together, we're one country. So, again, the elephant is still in the room, but until then, let's start making signals that we are all working together for this great Nigeria project. Okay. There are little things you can do, but again, that's my big thing today.
Okay. I want to say many thanks for joining me on the program today. Many thanks for sharing your own perspectives, even as the country approaches 59 years of age, October 1. So it would be nice for me to say Happy Independence Day to you because it's almost here. Thank you very much, Mustafa Chike-Obi, and hammering on the unity and the leadership, visionary leadership. Those are the two things that I captured from this interview. Many thanks and have a lovely day.
Thank you very much. It's my honor.
All right, that's the much you can take on today's edition of the program. Many thanks for joining us. Of course, I spoke earlier to Mustafa Chike-Obi, the former managing director at the Asset Management Corporation of Nigeria. In fact, the first MD of that organization.